Hey everyone, it's Stephanie again, and you are tuned into the review of Married at First Sight, Season 9, Episode 9. So, last night's episode was the celebration of the couple's 1 month anniversary. Last night's episode to me felt like hot chocolate on Christmas morning. It felt so good. Like, it felt so sweet up until the end, obviously. But for the most part, everybody had a great time, a beautiful time interacting with each other, celebrating each other. And, traditionally, we're not usually celebrating 1 month. I mean, when you first get married, 1 month is exciting because it's like the first milestone, but you don't really celebrate it. But for them, it's very significant because it's an 8-week experiment, and we've seen couples not make it past the honeymoon before. So it is something for them to commemorate and a good time to look back and see how much has changed in the last month. A month ago they were strangers and now they're a married couple and they've gone on a honeymoon and they've learned to live their lives together and they've moved in, all of these different things. So last night's episode I don't think had so much going on, so I really don't have much to say about each couple, but I'm just going to kind of touch on, with the exception of the last couple that I will save, I'm going to touch on how I thought they did. So Iris and Keith, I'll kick it off with them. I really enjoy seeing them. I still have a lot of hope for them because I think that they have the most genuine and natural chemistry. Some of the things that are getting in the way, I think, are solvable. I think that maybe off camera things might look different. We know as we watch these shows, production always has kind of their end goal about what they want to do and how they want to do it and how they present it. So I think that possibly that could be getting in the way as well. I think for them to continue to grow because they have such a good chemistry together, and they've also gone through something so significant so early on. Unfortunately Keith's grandmother passed away, and just having to kind of carry that, being a spouse in general, more or less a brand new spouse and a spouse who was a stranger. I think she did really well with that. Some of their other issues, which I'm not going to get into because I think we beat that virginity horse down. I think the issue is not necessarily that on either end, even with Keith, because I think he genuinely cares about her. I think it's more how they get to know each other, how they build intimacy in other ways until, if and when they transition to a different level of intimacy. But I think naturally they work well together. She has her quirks. Those are things that she will see and she will learn, and hopefully she'll make some changes, and he will continue to develop different areas of himself. He seems to be a little more cool, calm, and collected, so we're not seeing too much from him that is concerning, but there are levels to people. So I think that they're doing really, really well. I enjoyed seeing them enjoy their anniversary, celebrate their anniversary, give each other meaningful gifts. They felt very together last night, and they pretty much, for the most part, are in a good space, I think. So I just want to continue to see them grow, and I definitely want to continue to see them develop. And it's good to see that the both of them are on the same page about talking about the time together beyond the 8 weeks, and making little jokes about 50 years from now and after the experiment past 8 weeks. I love hearing that because they're both pretty much on the same page about this not being something that's like, okay, well, if 8 weeks comes and it doesn't work out, then I'm out. That's not what it's about. So that's Iris and Keith. Next we have Deanna and Greg. So Deonna and Greg is another couple that I think is doing really, really well. I love seeing their growth together. Deonna is continuing to let her walls down, and she said something yesterday saying that he's what she prayed for and what she needed, and then what she like he was actually more than what she even knew she needed. So usually your good spouse adds certain things to you that like, this person is the opposite in this way, so they'll help me do this. And then you get gifts that you didn't know you needed, but you did. And I think that him being so open, him being so playful and loving helps her to let her walls down slowly. And him just being a good person and her being able to feel that allows her to be comfortable enough to do that. She has these walls up for a reason, and that's based on past experience. And it's not going to go away because Greg shows up and he's a nice guy in 2 weeks. So we have to kind of give her room to make those changes, and that will continue to develop. But I think they're moving along at a great pace. They're more playful, and when they went bowling and kind of joked around, and they're super sweet to watch. They have another very genuine chemistry. And I think even in the areas where there might be a little cause for pause because she might be really guarded and he might be a little overbearing, not in a negative or malicious way, but just in a overly analytical way. They're really like a beautiful couple to me, and I think that they really have a good chance at longevity. Watching them, celebrate their honeymoon was super sweet. That little romantic setup that he did towards the end of the night. Even watching him try the octopus, like, that's huge. That's not just, okay, just try it. That is so, that's such a step outside of his comfort zone. And he pushed himself to do that, to show her that he was willing to make himself uncomfortable for her. And that speaks volumes, and that will translate to more than just these small things. Because to me, the small things are the big things. So the way we show up sometimes is how we show up always. How you do some things is how you do all things. And so the way that he's willing to put himself out there for her is very meaningful, not only to himself, but to her. And she's able to really appreciate that. She was so excited that he tried it for her, knowing that he was really uncomfortable and really didn't want to do that. But she loved that too. And so I heard like many years ago in this sermon that the pastor said like the best relationship is two servants in love, because they're always focused on kind of serving each other. And I think that they are displaying that. They're both kind of willing to get uncomfortable. It may not be as quickly as the other person, but they're willing to get uncomfortable for each other so that they can get comfortable overall. So that is Deonna and Greg. Now we have Matt and Amber. So I'm torn, y'all, because if I would have seen this Matt from the beginning, then I wouldn't feel the way that I feel about him. But I still feel the way that I feel. Based on yesterday's episode, I thought, they had such a very beautiful relationship and celebration. He wrote this song for her. He's trying to put in more effort. He's trying to be more present. It's what he wants to do and what he should be doing. If you're really working on the relationship and working to hear your partner's needs and working to do better than what you've been doing, then he's spot on. And I really, really hope that's genuine. Where I have cause for pause is that we've seen so many other like bright, bleeding red flags from him that show such a disconnect and such dysfunctional history that this is not enough for me to be like, Matt's in it. Like, I can't really say that right now. And I want to, because I love love and I'm like a hopeful romantic, but based on some of the other larger issues that have really deep roots, this was not enough for me. But I really enjoyed seeing him get into this role and like be uncomfortable in this role, kind of walk a little blind, not really know what to do, but he did it like in the way that he can do it. I brought flowers home, in his mind, women like flowers, let me bring it home. I just messed up a few days ago. I'm gonna write her a song, which I thought that was sweet. I thought that was very thoughtful, and that was a way for him to give her a gift that was like personal, even better than something tangible. Not that something tangible would have been bad, but that was just something like really deep, really sweet. And even though Matt is very guarded, for me that was a very transparent moment that he shared with her. So of course Amber was excited. Amber's always excited. She's always super happy, and she always does her best. They had a good episode. They really, really did. I just am leery. It's like, the calm after the storm. I just want it to continue to be calm. Like, I want to see continued growth, and that is going to sustain somewhat of a relationship. That will build trust. They talked about building trust, and he said something very significant over dinner that, trust takes a long time to build, and we're just matched with strangers, and we have to build this trust overnight. And in some ways, there's a lot of pressure for them to hurry up and get to phases of relationships that don't happen for a very long time sometimes. So I appreciate him saying that, and that showed me like, okay, there is more here, which I knew there was, but it was good for him to show that and to show her that. And I'm really hoping that develops. I'm not sold 100%, but if it continues in that direction, then I have more to lean on with them. I just can't let one thing or one episode be like erase everything else. But I really hope that maybe he just had a tough start and he was just YOLO, you only live once, and now he had a dose of reality. I hope that the talk with Dr. Pepper, woke him up a little bit. Only time will tell. So that is Matt and Amber. Last but not least, Jamie and Elizabeth. So once again, Jamie and Elizabeth, they are a roller coaster. That's the best way to describe them. They're up, they're down, they're up, they're down. The last few episodes have shown us that really since the honeymoon. They've had quick spats and then they get over but it's gotten progressively worse. And I can't really even talk about their celebration of each other because it was completely annihilated by the way that the night ended. So the couples all received like a little basket with their vows and some other little tchotchkes, and also the wedding album, which is exciting to see. It's the first time you see the pictures from the wedding. We usually can't wait to get back to see your pictures from the wedding. In true female form, Elizabeth is hyper focused on what she looks like in these photos. And the beautiful gifts that they had and the beautiful experience that they had is shot to hell immediately, because Jamie is really upset that she's really only hyper focused on herself. She's talking about her hair and the way her boobs look and how the dress fit and all these things. Here's the thing. Here's a little oh, my earring fell off. Okay. Here's a little note for most men. We all do that. All women, we kind of do that because you're so caught up in your look as a bride that you wonder, this is real time, that you wonder what you look like, not just from the way that you see yourself, but what you look like in the pictures. So you really hyper focus and look at yourself. It is not in a narcissistic way. Women, we tend to pick ourselves apart and, oh, that looked great. Oh, I wish I could have done that differently. I mean, it's just natural. And I think that the way that it was presented made it seem like she was so self-indulgent, but I've been a bride, so I understand the energy of that. I think a simple, and this is where I think Jamie dropped the ball. I think he killed it. I'm not going to put any blame on her because I think energetically her spirit wasn't being malicious. I think she was being Elizabeth, all over the place, hyper focused on her hair and the color of her hair. I think she was just being herself. I don't think she was intentionally leaving him out of the conversation. She was talking about very surface things. And if he wanted to, and this is where Jamie drops the ball, he does not know how to communicate. Both of them don't. We've talked about this in the last few episodes. She gets really upset. She explodes. She gets nasty. He gets really upset. He doesn't necessarily explode. He implodes, and then he gets very viscerally nasty. And we saw that yesterday. A quick fix, well, let me go to the end. So they get home, they kind of start talking about it again, and he explodes on her and basically says she's so materialistic. All she cared about was the way that she looked, and she's an effing something. I don't know what it was. What I do know is that it wasn't nice. It was very disrespectful, and it's not the way that you speak to your spouse. And it shows his lack of the ability to really effectively communicate his emotions and how he's feeling. There's such a simple fix for what he wanted. A simple, babe, I'm here too, or okay, now me, what do you think about me? Or you looked beautiful, let's talk about us. If he would have said something like that, it would have triggered her to be like, oh, I'm so sorry, babe. I just was obsessing about what I looked like, but not in a way that was negative or I don't care about you or this experience isn't about you. Sometimes you really have to be aware of the intention that your spouse has and the intention of who you know them to be. That's really huge because if we go based on emotion, the other person is always at fault. If your spouse does something and it really angers you, get into the practice of thinking about the intention of who they are and the intention of what you think they really mean. It's not something that happens all the time, but it is something that you'll be able to, when you start thinking about it, you'll be able to control your response. Because if your spouse says something, let's say they come home and they say, you're like, hey, and they say something real snarky or real whatever. If this person is not someone who naturally does that, then, and the intention of who you know them to be, okay, this person's a sweet person, or they're respectful, or they usually come home and they're talkative. Something is wrong. Even if I want to snap back, I might be able to say, you know what, let me just give him 50 feet. Like, let me just relax, because this is not who I know this person to be. And then you can approach it a little differently. Like, hey, what's going on? Because you normally don't do that. And you're able to change the narrative and change the energy of what could become an argument into something where you can have open communication. So, and somebody has to take charge of that. It's not always going to be both of us 50-50. Like, marriage is not often 50-50. Somebody is 60-40, 70-30, 80-20. That could have been his opportunity to say, okay, babe, like, you looked beautiful, but like, let's focus on us right now. I know you want to focus on all these things about what you looked like. You were beautiful. Let's focus on us. Or even like a little funny jab, like, all right, am I in here? Like, something where it didn't allow him to perseverate on what he felt she should have been doing, and make it what he like. He created this narrative and he made her fit the narrative, and the narrative is she's selfish, she's materialistic, she doesn't care about this marriage, she doesn't care about me in these photos, all she cares about is herself, she doesn't really care about anything, she has no depth, all of these things that really, what she's actually doing has no merit to all these feelings that he's attaching. This is just, he had an expectation, and sometimes expectations are the problem, because if you expect that I squeal at a surprise but I smile and I'm like, that's so sweet, then I didn't give you what you wanted based on what you expected. And the problem is that you expected to for someone to do what you wanted them to do, and you can't control that person. So we really have to be mindful of the level of our expectations. There are certain things you should expect, respect, etc., but opening the book, you never know what you're gonna get, because what if she didn't like her look? Then she would have been like, oh my god, I didn't know I look like that. Like, it is what it is. And I think I'm gonna put the responsibility on him in how he handled it. And even if he was upset, hey, like, let's take a pause. Like, we're having a beautiful night. I feel like I put a lot into talking about us and making this an us experience, and I think you're focusing on this. Like, can we just something? But he didn't. And then it became something very nasty, and then they got into an argument, and then he called her a nasty name, and she was upset and she was yelling back, and once again he decides to leave. And he had done that before. Dr. Pepper told him not to do that, and he kind of used that against her in a very passive-aggressive, manipulative way the episode before, when she wanted to leave so badly, even though I know he was saying it because Dr. Pepper said don't leave. But even the way that he was saying it was kind of like snarky, like Dr. Pepper said not to, but he wasn't giving her the energy to stay. It was just like, well, if you stay, you're not as serious, or if you leave, you're not as serious as I am. So he ends up leaving. Bye, have a good life. And that's it. Well, if I leave, then it's a divorce. And he really, really ruined what could have been something beautiful. Now, if he would have voiced his concerns and she wasn't mature enough to say, you know what? You're right. Let me just get out of my own head and focus on us. Then I would put the blame on her. But right now, I'm Team Elizabeth for this episode. Because I think that we all have our moments where we might be a little self-absorbed and it's not intentional. And with a wedding, it's just been there. Like, I look at my wedding pictures now and I'm looking at the details of the dress. Doesn't mean I don't care about my husband. Just, that's where we're at. And if he triggers something, and this didn't happen to me, but if he were to say it in a way where I could recognize, oh my God, like, I am over obsessing, my response should be respectful enough to understand what he's saying, and then we move along. But if I don't get that and I just get a jab about what I'm not doing based on his experience, everyone will respond that way. So I don't see, I'm going to stick to not seeing much hope for the two of them. I do not watch the upcoming previews because I feel like that'll like mess up my review. So I don't know, but I've been saying that I think like a couple of weeks now, that I don't see longevity for them, because they're scorching hot when they're hot, and they're scorching, well, not scorching, but they are ice cold when they're cold. So that is Jamie and Elizabeth. If anything, we can kind of just learn from their lack of the ability to appropriately and effectively communicate. And if they don't stay together, definitely wish them well. But I don't necessarily think a couple that gets this nasty so quickly should even be together. So we'll see, though. We still got 4 more weeks of this experiment. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. As always, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. I will talk to you guys next week. Everyone have a great week.